All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Thrive Talks. Tonight, our show, Peak Performance. We're going to be discussing performance anxiety. Tonight, we have with us our guest, Marquis Walker. He's a licensed clinical social worker. He's joining us tonight to talk with us from this topic of performance anxiety. Marquise, welcome to Thrive Talks. I am so glad to have you on tonight as our guest. Uh, Marquise is, again, licensed clinical social worker. He's very passionate about what he does. He earned a bachelor's of arts in communications from Arkansas State University and a master of social work from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. He's currently a licensed clinical social worker. As a mental health professional, Marquise is certified in trauma focused CBT. He's trained in internal family systems, grief informed therapy, and anger management. He commonly uses mindfulness exercises, behavioral therapy, humanistic therapy, solution focused therapy, and role playing. Again, Marquise, welcome to Thrive Talks. Man, it is so good to have you. I've been looking forward to tonight's episode to hear from you. And as we get started, uh, can you share a bit about your background as a former college athlete and how it influenced your career as a licensed clinical social worker?
Well, specifically, I think I believe I started playing ball. When I say ball, basketball, football, and I think softball. My mom got confused and signed me up for softball instead of baseball. But I started about around the third grade. I can't remember exactly. Later in high school, I started to lean more towards football, track, weightlifting, and basketball. And over the years of really seeing players go through situations related to injuries, careers ending. Not everybody is fortunate enough to go to play in college, and not everybody in college is fortunate enough to go to the league. So seeing careers ending, that pressure, that pressure to win. Don't get me wrong. I sometimes fall in that category of, I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. Um, and then facing the music of losing. The music is much louder when you're on the other side of it, and yes, your world evolves around that sort of thing. Um, high school, high school, I started to notice um, after graduating, I started to notice situations of athletes' identities were being shaped, habits were being formed, things like that. Characters were being established, and so I started to really, really become in tune. Of course, part of me wants to be a coach, but I started to really pay
Mhm.
attention to the individual athlete and really pay attention to the environment. I'm from down south. All the lights go off on Friday, you know what I mean? And
Right.
just seeing how everyone functions around there, especially when you lose, and versus like here in Central Arkansas, it's a big difference. No, I'm not gonna say no one cares really, but is the environment more so? And so just paying attention to the individual players, the systems of programs and things like that. They really, really got my attention as a mental health professional.
Okay. All right. And so, specifically when it comes to high school athletes, what was your was that your motivation when it came specifically to high school athletes?
Yeah, I think, as I said, like in high school specifically, it's a very vitable time. It's very precious. Um, Identities are being shaped, those habits, characteristics, things like that. And I really noticed the translation from being an athlete and going into the workplace, right? And when you're constantly under this pressure to perform, aka performance anxiety, and how it bleeds over into the real world, so to speak. So for myself, I'm guilty of this thing of like, yo, I have to win. I had a therapist sit down with me. It was actually a colleague, and she said, Marquis, you're in a profession where, quote unquote, how do you deem winning? And it
Right.
blew my mind because I'm like, whoa, like how do I, and I have the championship rings and things like that. And so just really being able to shape the narrative, so to speak, getting into a little bit of cognitive behavior therapy. So really getting into the core beliefs. Core beliefs are built upon our experiences and things like that. And so really being able to shape and support a person's core belief, so to speak, before they get into the real world or proceed in their career.
Wow, yeah. Talking about that pressure for high school athletes, I do have high school athletes that come here for therapy, and that's one of those things that they talk about, those pressures of performing. And I and it's one of the reasons why I wanted to invite you to talk about this is that I don't think that sometimes parents, coaches, trainers sometimes recognize or maybe they may not be fully aware of
Mhm.
what that high school athlete is feeling when it comes to the pressures of performing, and actually how that pressure can actually hinder
Oh,
that athlete from performing their best. Right,
for sure.
right, yeah. So I think that's important. So can you define for our audience how would you define sports performance anxiety?
So I would define it as, from a mental health perspective, symptomology, right? So when an individual starts to experience this heart racing when they're not performing, when they started to experience trembling, shaking, maybe shaking and things like that, in class before a game, or on the sideline getting ready, or on the basketball court, whatever the sport is, getting ready to go in, that noticeable shaking, that noticeable trembling, and all these things that I'm saying, I have actually saw these things, in retrospect. I just wasn't trained then to know what it was. But things like nausea, so throwing up before a game. I've seen people like, oh, I got it out me. I'm ready to go now. That muscle tension, muscle tightness, that could be really tricky because most athletes, when they're performing at a high level, they're constantly in the weight room. So that can be a little bit tricky to really just call it out, but it could be unnecessary tightness throughout the body, and that could definitely influence performance. So the cognitive symptoms, such as like worrying about performance outcome, really like, yo, did I do good? Did I do bad? Like, what did I mess up at? That type of thing. Negative self-talk. Man, I'm stupid. I missed the play, or I missed the read, or I got the play wrong. I'm trying to figure out my left from right. What am I doing?
Right.
I'm, really hard on myself. I've seen players really beat their heads with the helmet on. I, not no, didn't walk. I did it myself, so to speak. Like, out of frustration. Um, Difficulties concentrating, specifically in class. Like, I can't take a test. I had those teachers where they they give tests on Fridays, and I'm like, why? This is a football town. Why are you doing that to us? But just racing thoughts, constantly thinking about those sort of things, like behavioral symptoms. When I say behavioral symptoms, I'm talking about avoidance in behaviors, avoiding situations, noticeable change in behaviors. I'll say this. I used to get very emotional before games, specifically with football. I would get very emotional, to the point to where I'm calling, I'm texting loved ones like, "I love you." Like, this is, I'm going to battle, right? And there's, I'm going to battle, and I say that very humbly, not out of no disrespect towards our military troops and things like that, but in my mind, in my 15, 16, 17-year-old mind, 18-year-old mind, I am literally going to battle, and I'm going to walk off the field victorious, and by any means necessary. And so, noticing those types of, that's excessive, right? Noticing those types of excessive
Mhm.
behavior change, a little bit more irritable aggression. I didn't talk to people on Friday nights, especially when it was game night. Basketball is a little different, but with football, I didn't talk to. But, like, why are you talking to me? You don't know what's about to happen, you know. And so that was kind of like the philosophy, but that was also the
Right.
culture that I was coming up in.
Yeah. Now, as you talked about some of the signs, so I was I was thinking that, on on the football field, or the basketball coach, a court, the coach may be able to identify some of those signs or some of those symptoms,
Mhm.
but parents at home before the game, parents may not always recognize any of those symptoms. What can parents particularly be looking out for? What should they be looking out for?
I would say definitely. I'm gonna use the word, a clinical word, impairment. But to make that word make sense, more so looking at decline in performance in the academic space. Looking for a decline of taking care of responsibilities, duties around the house, noticeable mood changes, very dramatically changing. Noticing the change of like why aren't they doing the things that they usually would want to do? Noticing the self doubt, the negative self talk. I know that can be tricky to identify, but just having conversations with them and noticing like they're not their chippery ish. I'm extremely goofy, so they're not their goofy self at this point. They're literally someone else. They look zoned out, or they, as we say, that they're dialed in. Um, but just noticing those
Right.
types of things.
Okay. All right. Now, during the actual game, so they're on the field, they're on the court. Uh, how can this sports performance anxiety affect their performance on the court or on the
So
football field?
yeah, I would definitely say like cause impaired focus and concentration. What I mean by that is cloudy focus. Like I can't think straight. I used to play teams where I knew that the crowd was going to get to them. I knew that, and I would just play to it. I would, hey, you're going to drop the ball. Um, and so just impaired
Mhm.
focus, decision making, jumping off sides, things like that. What I mean by jumping off sides in the football world, basketball world is not missing free throws. I know free throws is it's a skill behind it. Don't get me wrong,
Right. Right.
but just missing free throws, missing wide open
Mhm.
layups, those type of things. Not going all the way, hitting the ball off the backboard. So just things like that causing those types of impaired focus. I would also like physical symptoms such as like noticeable heart increase, muscle tightness. Once again, that's a little tricky just because we're always exercising and always working out, that type of thing. But unnecessary sweating. So sweating and I'm not doing anything. Um, reduce confidence, increase,
Mhm.
but possibly increase of injury. Because if you're not focused and your decision making isn't as good, tell you a little bit of a story. I used to have this philosophy. My philosophy changed a lot. I was a headhunter. But I mean, like headhunter, like I want to put hat on ball, and I'm going to make sure I do it with
Mhm.
enthusiasm. But as I progressed in my career on the high school level, I was like, yeah, I can push my bounce. Deion Sanders, come on, I'm gonna push you out of push you out of bounds. I'm gonna put my body on you for.
Mhm.
But at the same time, uh, you know, impaired focus, like right, not keeping things into perspective, playing a big game or whatever the case may be, the pressure gets to me, and now I'm putting hat on ball when I shouldn't be. I should just really push him out of bounds. It counts as the same tackle. Um, so increase risk of injury, that sort of thing.
Okay. Now, whenever if this goes unchecked, right? With the high school athlete, if it goes unchecked, are there some long-term uh, if it goes unchecked?
Yeah, it really is. I keep in mind I said I played football from probably second to third grade. I can't remember exactly. You have to ask my mom on that one. But by the time I was a senior, it was just kind of like robotic. It wasn't. I was losing that passion, then injuries and stuff like that. I really was losing that passion, as well as, I was fortunate to play on a winning team. And by default, winning, we played together from knee hopper to a grasshopper. I still remember those guys.
Mhm.
I could probably name all 11, well, all 10 guys, including myself, on the offensive ball as well as the defensive ball. And then I could probably go into detail about the special team, because we played together so long. And so doing the same thing day in and day out, and not really, football takes a lot of time. Basketball, not so much. It's not so, where I was, it wasn't so much like drilled in you. But doing the same thing day in and day out, it can cause a little bit of burnout. Well, actually, it can cause a lot of burnout. And then, to
Okay.
not to mention
Yeah. Yeah.
the development of mental health, other mental health conditions such as like generalized anxiety, depression, panic attacks, things like that. It could really impact the person's self-esteem, self-worth. If I'm not playing ball, then who am I? What am I doing? What is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing in life? And mostly that could lead to quitting and just really just giving up on a lot of different things. It's not even related to sports, but sports is so engraved to the point that, well, this is my life, so I'm just giving up on life. And I hate to say it that way, but that's how a lot of athletes
Right.
think.
Right. Yeah. So I want to read one of the comments uh, from a viewer. It says, Josh, he wrote, pressure really weighs heavy when it's a timeout and the coach calls a play for you, and the team and the fans are depending on you to make the game winning touchdown or the game winning shot. Because if you drop that ball or you miss that shot, you all of a sudden you are sorry according to other people, but you are really are the one of the best on the team to be called to take the last shot or catch.
Ooh, beautiful. His name is Josh.
Yeah.
Who? Okay, so Josh, man, look,
Yes.
man. To be 100% honest, I'm gonna be honest. You can fact check me, right? Um, I was the third down guy from my high school, right? I don't know why, but I was third down guy. Meaning I more than likely was going to touch the ball. If we needed to throw the ball, I was going to touch the ball. If I touch the ball, my mentality is I don't want a first down, I'm getting six. Even if I get a pick, I'm getting six. That was that was the philosophy. So first and foremost, I would definitely explore from a therapist perspective. I would definitely explore the uh, irrational thought, the irrational belief in the situation. Because if you, in fact, if you are sorry, right, and not saying you are, but if you are, then why are you getting the ball in the first place in a crunch situation? So that means you are that guy, right? And then the other thing is more or less what I say to that specifically. I would just, it really encourage, separation by preparation. What I mean by that, like you put the time in, you had practice, you've done the things that you need to do to even get in a situation. So at that point, just have fun. You know, the beautiful thing is, though you win and though you lose some, but the beautiful thing is you have the opportunity to do something that you wouldn't have been doing in the first place if you wouldn't have been, grinding it out and doing the things you need to do to put yourself in that type of situation. So just have fun, and years later, as me, I'm a washed up athlete. I'm not washed up. I still got it. But you have those memories. And that's really what it comes down to, having those memories. I have memories for days. And so, man, just go have fun and create those memories.
Next question in the comments. It reads, "How do you guys feel about the kids in sports whose parents were really great at sports, so they expect their kids to be just as great? So they tend to yell at them, they tend to cuss at them, or whatever the case may be after the game if they didn't play up to the parents' standards."
You know, I wish I had a son, and I have daughters. Personally, I have daughters. None of my kids, they have the athletic ability. I see it. My daughter could be a track star. I really believe it. I was a track guy. I was a fast guy. My other daughter, she's kind of hard to read right now. She's one. But I, for a long time before I became a therapist, and before I would even say, before I really just started on my journey of being an involved dad and understanding the development of my child, my kids, I was like, yo, my kid, they gonna break my records, they gonna do this, da 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 da. And what I found was they're their own people. You know, the more I try to get taking my daughter to the track, and I'm like, yo, let me see you run 100. My 6-year-old, she's looking at me and said, Daddy, I don't want to be hot. But
Right.
my 6-year old, she is into books. That is what she's into. So I think if more parents were to pay attention to what their kids are into and back their kids in that way, everybody's not going to be Deion Sanders. Everybody's not going to be Ray Lewis. There's not going to be everybody's not going to be LeBron, right? But there's some people that are some birth Einsteins, right? And all we need to do is get behind them and push them in that way. I see a lot of parents, I would say, try to vicariously live through their kid. I'm not gonna say any names, but I have a relative. I have a relative. They're always trying to make their kid do something, and I'm like, dude, you wasn't like that as an athlete. You wasn't like that. You wasn't running people over. You wasn't in the weight room grinding. I know because I was there and you wasn't there with me, right? You came in late sometimes. So why are you trying to make your kid do something that you weren't doing? That's the other thing. Behavior is learned. And so if you really, as a parent, if you really want your kid to be active and that type of thing, first you have to start checking yourself in the mirror, like, yo, am I even into it like that? And if not, I would kind of.
Yeah. So for those high school athletes that are watching us tonight, what are some effective strategies or techniques they can use to manage or reduce their performance anxiety?
Man, so that's a really good question. That would be specifically, I would have to actually like, talk to them and really get to know them, that type of thing. But over just a generic perspective, and I say I would have to get to know them perspective, like things like that, because everybody's different, right? Some people, certain things are going to work better, and some they're not going to work ver- as good. I would say keeping the main thing the main thing. One of my favorite sayings that I've developed these days, Deion Sanders, he says, keep the main thing the main thing. The main thing in the situation is to have fun. If that's not the main thing, then I don't know what to tell you. And really going back to keeping the main thing, I would even say questioning your why. Like why am I doing this? Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to talk anybody into not playing sports and things like that, but to be 100% honest, I was
Right.
the reason why I was playing. It started off to have fun, but then I started to turn heads. Right? When I mean by turn heads, I started to like go into the recruiting thing, things like that. It became more business for me. I wasn't having much fun. I should have celebrated more. I would have got in trouble, did up downs and belly flops in football practice on Monday, but I should have celebrated some. I should have,
Right.
been a little bit rebellious sometimes and did my own thing just to have fun, that type of thing. But I would say question your why. But then mindfulness meditation. There are different techniques of getting into mindfulness. When I think of mindfulness, I'm thinking grounding techniques and things like that. Those things will help for sure.
Okay. All right. So can you can you briefly talk to us about just your experience as a college athlete? What was that like for you being able to play at the college level?
What was it like? Well, it was thrilling. To be honest, it was really fun. It was fun all the way up into fall camp. It was fun. Fall camp is when you have two-a-days and things like that. It was fun until I ran into like 5 o'clock workouts and things like that because I was a freshman, so I had to get up a little bit earlier than the other guys. As I progressed in the career, I was able to get up around 6:30 and things like that. Have workouts around that time. It's really fun, but at the same time, it's not. It's strictly performance based. So it was always this pressure. I played Arkansas State. I have championship rings, and I can honestly say, do you want to have fun or do you want to win? And that's kind of the questions that bluntly the coaches would ask. You know, winning is cool, but sometimes it comes with the price of not having fun. And at that point, I quickly accepted the fact, the reality that this this is not Pee Wee anymore. I'm not playing it for my hometown anymore. This is a business. The transaction is me getting a free education. But I met a lot of great people. I had a lot of fun, a lot of laughter. It's really fun to laugh in team meetings when you're not supposed to be laughing. So a lot of great
Right.
memories, but at the same time, you do have to perform. One game isn't good enough. One practice isn't good enough. You have to come, show up every day, ready to perform.
Okay. All right. So, and we talked about some ways that parents and coaches can support their athlete. Uh, so, what role do teammates play in helping each other? How can that teammates? How can they increase performance anxiety in their teammate, or how can they help decrease?
So increasing, like really giving them a hard time. Really, like, don't get me wrong. And in some degree, there has to be some sort of accountability. Meaning, like, yo, man, you miss your block. Come on, man, you got this. I was notorious for being able to really build a person up, even if they weren't that good. And I'm just gonna be honest, some people aren't just that good, right? But
Mhm.
when they weren't, I would still make them feel as I needed them. In some ways, I played running back, and so I would constantly feed the mindset of my offensive line. I say my office line, meaning like the office line that I was playing with. They weren't mine, right? But I was playing with these guys. I would constantly feed, the, if I'm at the safety position or at the corner position, I'm constantly like, yo, the backers are, y'all got, yo, good hit, man. Or yo, you missed it, but it's cool. We got this. And I would have a lot of other players like to try to, slap their head and things like that. I played in a different era, but I would have a lot of players try to really get on them, and I'm like, yo, man, like that ain't helping him right now. That's not helping right now. You just gave him a migraine. He could have got that migraine a different way. um, so to speak. And so really just
Right,
building building each other up. Ways to decrease that is conversation. Really having conversation about what you're feeling, that type of thing. Honest conversation, like, yo, like I'm nervous about to get Day's game, and what high school athlete isn't nervous about going in front of thousands of people and playing a game, you know. So just having that open conversation.
okay. So we school just started recently, just started for in Central Arkansas. Some today was the first day for some school districts. Some school districts have already been in. So we are right in the midst of your favorite time of the year, the fall, going into the fall football season. And so all across small towns in Arkansas, stadiums are packed on Friday nights football. What when should an athlete consider seeking professional help for performance anxiety?
Mm. So, it's a tricky thing, right? I would definitely say they should start seeking support when they realize, like, yo, I am trying to focus to study, but I can't. Yo, I'm in class, but mentally I'm not. That noticing that shakiness. Don't get me wrong, this that little bit of nervousness is, not just a terrible thing, right? But when the nervousness prevents you from being able to perform in that classroom, on the football field, or at home, noticing that, yo, I'm short with people, meaning I'm irritable, I'm more irritable, I'm more anxious. Noticing that excessive aggressiveness, sometimes that can be hard to notice, but just noticing people's reaction when you react to certain things. If they look at you like, maybe we need to go and talk with someone.
Yep. All right. Yeah. And so, of course, therapy, seeking out professional therapy. Are there any other resources or other things that you recommend?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. I think that schools within themselves, schools have a lot of resources. Every school has a lot of resources, even if they don't promote the resources and things like that. Every school has a school counselor. And I know in Central Arkansas, there's a lot of school-based therapy that are out there, are therapists that are willing to provide therapy within the school. So taking advantage of the resources that you have already within your school system. Most athletes don't even really know the school counselor name unless they're trying to go to college. And the conversation is more
Right.
about what classes do I need to take to clear clearinghouse. And so really taking advantage of your your support system. And even if that specific counselor's job is more so more of a guidance counselor, they still have the resources that they're able to point you in a direction to get you the support you need. And so I would say taking advantage of the support that you have before you. Most some people they attend church and things like that. Some churches have people that they could talk with, whether it's the local pastor or someone of the deacon or one of the missionaries and things like that. So really just using what you have already before you, not trying to step outside of the box unless within your box there are no resources whatsoever. But at that point, at least somebody will be able to point you in the right direction.
Okay. All right. So we have a few more questions here. This first one says, "Do you feel like some coaches go overboard when they are chewing some players out? And if so, does that cause a certain mental damage towards the player, or does it really make them better, as the coach would say?"
I'm laughing because I have had my fair share of chewings, as they call it. Um, you know, I would say this: everyone's different. Everyone's different. I think this is where a coach really need to get to know the athlete. They really need to get to know the athlete. That is really important. For me, I'm keep in mind I played in a different time zone, and so you getting on me, I'm gonna laugh at you and be like, in my mind, I'm be like, I'm gonna prove you wrong, and then I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna come over to look at you like, what you got to say now, right? That was my mentality. That's my philosophy. I come from a different era, a different background. However, some athletes, that pushes them away. Like I'm not. Why would I go and play with someone or play for someone or whatever, and I do nothing right? Why am I going to put myself in that type of position? I'm constantly being yelled at. All those things. When I say yelled at, I'm meaning yelled at in a way of degrading. Um, so I think overall, I would say it really doesn't help, especially when it's coming from a place of non-productive criticism. It's coming from a place of their own insecurities and things like that. A lot of times, that's where it comes from. But at the same time, I think part of it, like when you get to know your player, like like if I'm coaching a player and I know that like he shuts down when I start yelling at him. If I know he shuts down, and I start yelling at him, then I'm gonna have a different conversation with him. I'm not gonna yell at him in front of people. I'm not gonna get on him. I'm gonna pull him to the side and I may, put more on, not like aggressive like that, but I might put more, hey man, come on, man, we got this. You just calm down, relax, chill out. We're gonna go out here, we're gonna do this thing, you train, da da da. I'm gonna give them that type of encouragement. But if I have another player over here, he's just loud and within himself, he's that kind of player. I'm like, whoa, let's go. We gotta get you, we gotta, on the hop, really getting into it. So really understanding and knowing your players, learning what motivates them, what gets them motivated, what is their goal, right? Every guy that's playing in high school don't have aspirations of going to the NFL or going to the NBA. Some of them are just trying to have a good time. Some of them want to go on and be police officers. Some of them want to go to the military. Some of them want to become an accountant. All those things, and really being able to motivate that aspect of them while coaching football. I think coaching football is cool. X's and O's is cool, but at the same time, I think a lot of coaches have gotten away from coaching life. And I think if we get back to coaching life, we'll start to see something different. And what I mean by coaching life, being able to have those social skills, being able to know how to shake a man's hand, being able to look a person in his eyes, being able to be accountable and be on time, show up on time. All those like saying, be able to pull your pants up, I believe if we get back to that aspect of coaching and we kind of focus on the X and O's uh, later, so to speak, I think we'll see a much better situation.
Well, I love that concept of coaching life, and I agree with you 100% that I think that there should be a move going back to that coaching life. Uh, Marquise, this next question says, um, do you believe that home life can greatly impact performance anxiety?
You know, yes, absolutely, 1000%. But once again, it kind of depends on the person, right? Um, I think that having unrealistic expectations is tricky. It's kind of hard to dunk a basketball when you're 5'2", right? And it's kind of hard to get pancake blocks and you 200 pounds and everybody else is 300 pounds. That's going to be really challenging. And so a lot of times parents have this unrealistic expectation, but also they're like, "Yo, we need you to get your scholarship. This is how you're going to get your schooling paid for. This is how you're going to go to college. How is you going to be able to afford college?" So giving that unnecessary pressure. Don't get me wrong, you can get a scholarship, but at the same time, you can get scholarships in other ways. I've been fortunate enough to work with people, basketball player. I've worked with a basketball player that played. I can't tell you the school specifically, but they were a D1 athlete. Several of them actually. But I also have had a lot of people in band that have full rides in band, and so it's different ways of getting that full ride. And some parents have to understand, like, not to live. You can't live through your kids. When you start trying to live through your kids, it creates a problem. And then I would also say, like, yo, you constantly pushing, but what's next once they can't play anymore? What if, you know, God forbid, an injury comes up? What then? What do I do then? And so I think really, like, looking at it from a different perspective, I do think that it can cause a lot of stress, but at the same time, it can be a good thing. Really, I know a lot of boys specifically, they look to the coach as a father figure, and though that could be a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because at the end of the day, when it's time for you to graduate, that's not your daddy. That was the coach, or
Right, right,
in my case in college, man, I had like 5 different coaches. Those coaches changed like that, right? And so
right.
looking at it from that perspective, it could be a good thing, but it also could be a harmful thing.
Okay. The next question in the comment section: how can you separate constructive criticism from destructive criticism?
You have to get to know the player. You have to get to know him. Once you get to know him, it becomes a situation where I know. For example, I had a conversation with a coach one time, and the first this is a beautiful conversation. He was a coach that chewed me out every day. I mean, that's who he was. He was he was my history teacher as well.
Mhm.
Um, so if you're watching this, man, I appreciate it, man. And I'm gonna text you too, man. But the thing is, he chewed me out every day. But when we had a conversation, I don't know if it was my junior or senior year, I can't remember, and he said, Marquis, they figured out how to get me motivated. I'm not going to say how they figured it out, but they figured out how to get me motivated. And he's like, yo, Marquis, I'm going to chew you out regardless. I'm going to do that. And for the first time, he explained to me, yo, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I believe that you are a much better player than what you are showing us. You have the ability. He explained. He was like, you have the ability to take over situations and blah 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 blah, all that kind of thing. And so when he had that conversation, it's just like it's like the chains just fell off. Yeah, I was free, if I will. And so you got to get to know your players. You got to get to know your players and have honest conversations, that sort of thing. And understanding, like, it's one thing to say things in front of people, and it's another thing for me to pull you in my office or pull you to the side and say things to you.
Right, right. And sometimes because young people, high school athletes, uh, sometimes they internalize every word that's said to them. They internalize it, they personalize it. So it's hard sometimes for high school athletes to kind of know how to separate that. I have worked with athletes and they made the comment, I feel like coach don't like me. Coach is always yelling at me. And I think that that just goes back to that question there that was asked in the comment. Sometimes those high school athletes are not, they don't know how to separate that because again, they internalize and they personalize those types of things. So, Marquise, what do you think schools, athletic programs can benefit from like educational sessions and workshops to help them understand and understand how to address performance anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I believe, well, first it's a two-way thing. I think the educational system, I think that they have things to implement. It's just a matter of enforcing the implementation of those things. Creating if we can educate coaches and things like that on creating a supportive environment. I I'm thinking in growing up, I remember there was a we called it the boo boo box. I think a lot of us had high ankle sprains, the longest sprains, or something like that. And I'm not gonna say his name,
Mm.
but coach, I'm gonna say coach. Coach said, "You got if you hurt, go stand over there by the boo boo box." And that was, we laugh. I'm laughing about it now, but could you imagine something like that happening now? So really, just educating coaches on being able to explain to to athletes and getting to know athletes on how to create a supportive environment, educating on awareness, mental health awareness, that type of thing, teaching labeled praise. Every time you give me feedback, you telling me that I'm not running through the tackle, or you always tell me I'm 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 too far off. You always give me the negative. But what happens if we say, okay, your stance was good, right? You fired off the ball good. You attack the ball. Um, you were able to really 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 make the play, but your head wasn't up. You duck your head, right? I named I named four or five things before I give you that one thing that you did wrong. And so now I'm able to, like, yeah, I'm able to little harp on it. When I say harp on, I'm really, hey, I need you to keep your head up. When you keep your head up, you prevent injuries and things like that. I'm pointing to my neck. You prevent those types of things when you keep your head up. Um, so being able to call out label praise instead of saying, you did good, but really labeling the praise that you're giving. I think that sort of thing would help, but just more education and understanding. I think if more coaches were to be able to create that supportive environment, have that awareness, use that positive reinforcement, as well as, I would even add, supporting athletes individually to come up with smart goals for their life. What do you want your life to look like? Things like that. I believe that programs would be a lot better, but it don't start when they get to high school. A lot of people overlook the little league teams. When I mean our little league teams, they overlook the pee wee, they overlook the middle school. In fact, if you want a winning program, start coaching those seventh graders. Like, that's where it starts, right? And you can create that environment to where they know how to support each other. They know how to validate each other. You can really create that, and I believe that that program will be successful.
So, now, man, there is we see it in the NFL, we see it in the NBA, we see it at the college level where those programs now are employing mental health therapists. They have a mental health therapist available for the NFL players, the team. In the NBA, a lot of colleges now, well, the athletic department hires a mental health therapist. But do you think with at the high school level they will ever move toward that direction of addressing what we're talking about with performance anxiety, the mental health of the players? I think it's an area that's overlooked, which is why I wanted to address this topic on the show. Uh, what are your thoughts?
my mom's a principal, so I have a little bit of insight when it comes to policies and funding and things like that. NBA, NFL, colleges, and things like that. And I love working with athletes on that level too. Um, but it's funding, the funding. Some schools are barely getting by. They have teachers teaching multiple subjects. um they're having to drive the buses, and I mean it's just a lot that they're having to do across the board. I can't tell you how many times I talked to my mom, and she's telling me, some of the policies on the political level that are going on, and how, a lot of people don't think about the smaller schools, how it's affecting the smaller schools. I feel that it's highly necessary. I think every school should provide mental health therapy, not only for the athletes but also for the whole campus. A lot of schools run into
Right.
situations where run into situations where it how we're going to pay for it. Well, then it comes into a thing where they could, build their insurance and things like that. But then that creates another thing, because most insurances, you're not able to really see the person on campus in person per se, because of whatever policy. And so there's another barrier. I think there are a lot of barriers to the thing. I think there are a lot of barriers to the situation. It's just a matter of how do we get there. And I think having open conversations, open dialogues about the thing. We pay $5 to $7 to go see our people play, but we won't change policy and implement things for them to have mental health therapy. Not only that, but like they put in the IEP, they'll put speech, they'll put OT, things like that, but they don't put mental health. And it's like,
Right.
yo, like, have you ever tried to sit in the classroom and you saw some stuff at home? Have you tried to really run a route or shoot a free throw and all you can think? Or have you ever tried to escape your reality through that sport, and then now you don't have that anymore? Now what do you do? And that starts to spiral into other things, aka avoidance, and that substance abuse and all that type of thing. And so I think there are a lot of barriers, but I do feel that it's a necessary need.
Okay. So, man, I just want to know, what school district do you go watch games where you only pay 5 or 7?
Well, keep in mind, man. Keep in mind. All right, so I shouldn't say it like this. I very rarely pay to get in games. Because there's a pass. There's a pass that I use. So I really don't know how much it pay. I think the last time I heard is like $10 or something like that, but I can't remember. But yeah, I think basketball games like that, it might be that price. But I mean, it's it I never,
Yeah.
and I don't mind paying. It's just, I have a lot of connections, with teams and things like that. But
Right.
to answer the question, man, I go to games, but like, for example, I got a little brother. He messaged me. He's gonna be playing varsity. I think that's what it's called with the high schools, the ninth grader. Watched him
Right.
play,
Right.
watched him run, and I was really shocked. He looked like me, but he's much more aggressive than I was. Um, I have another little cousin. He's playing at Henderson. He's going to be playing as a true freshman. I have another little cousin. He's going to be playing in high school. Then I had a whole bunch of cousins playing pee wee football. And so, man, I would definitely probably have to pay to get in the Henderson game for sure.
Yeah. 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 So, a good friend of mine has joined us in watching the live Dathan. And Dathan, he played college ball at UCA, college football at UCA.
Oh man.
His comments is he was agreeing with some things that you were talking about creating the SMART goals. Um, One on one without the resources in most communities, especially in the lower income communities. He said he was trying to echo you had stated earlier. So Dathan, hey man, it's good to have you joining in with us. All right. So Marquise, based on your experience, can you share with the listening audience a particular success story where overcame performance anxiety?
Yeah. Um, you know, as I said, I'm a little different. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I did experience performance anxiety. I still deal with performance anxiety because when you get accustomed to winning, sometimes you get trapped in the idea of like, yo, that's the only option I got. Even preparing for to sit before you guys, I'm thinking like, okay, how do I win? How do I give forth the best effort? Um, and that causes me to, okay, I gotta go. Last night I'm thinking, okay, I gotta go. What message can I leave? What can I do? Da, da, da. Constantly thinking about it all day. Um, but that's with everything. I do a lot of public speaking. And so I'm always really like thinking, how do I overcome this? How do I win? How do I win? I go back to a story. I played at Rising High School, and we played against Star City. It wasn't a rivalry team, but it was a rivalry team. In my book, a fun fact: they beat us by two, but it's okay. Um, and so the coach, I never forget. Coach comes to me and he says to me like, "Yo, like you played an awesome game." And I waved him off because I knew that he was going to have some sort of rebuttal. But he's like, "Yo, you played an amazing game," and I'm waiting for I'm like, "Oh, here you go, man. It's too early in the morning. It's 6 o'clock. Man, I ain't trying to hear this. It's Monday morning. I ain't trying to hear none of this, man. We lost by two, And keep in mind when you lose, especially in small towns, everybody hates you. So I think, right? And so you're navigating that thought process and all that type of thing, right? Nobody high fives you, nobody hugs you, it's just things like that. Um, and so the coach comes up to me, he says this to me, "You played an amazing game." And I'm like, "No, we lost by two." And the reason why we lost is because my the outside no the walk down safety, he didn't it was in man, and he didn't go with his guy. And I felt like I felt the team because it was my responsibility to say, "Yo, get over there or stop the play." Right. And I failed. I don't know. I just failed to call the correct play. And so they scored a touchdown. But nevertheless, coach comes up to me and says, "Yo, you played a gig, you played like he this coach almost perfect game." Meaning I did my assignments, I did follow my reads, I caught the ball, all the things. And so when he says that to me, I wave him off. He's like, "No, I want you to understand you have to get back to having fun. Coaches are always going to get on your butt." He didn't say but he said they're always going to get on your butt, right? And that point, I mean, literally, I really went back to having fun. I had coaches in college. I can't remember their names. Had so many of them. When it comes to the strength and conditioning, but I had coaches in college, man, they would rip me a new one every morning, and I just like because I stuck to the idea, yo, I'm going to have fun. And so I always go back to whether it's public speaking, whether it's talking to people, whether it's I mean whatever it is that produces that anxiety. I almost like it now. I almost look for it, because it gives me that thrill that been able to attach it to the idea that, yo, I'm going to have fun. If it's public speaking, I'm going to crack some jokes. I don't know what jokes I'm going to say, but they're going to come. I don't know. They always come, right? It never lets me down. I'm going to say some stuff. People are going to be laughing. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to be able to make a difference. I'm going to be able to do all these things. And so I just focus on literally having fun.
That's good, having fun. Right. So for those high school athletes that are tuned in right now, um, what advice would you like to give to them?
Mm. Like, I am 31 years old, and I still dream about lining up out wide, and I dream about running the go, running the post, and they in cover two, and I'm the cover two middle field wide open. I'm gone, right? I dream about running the slant. Most receivers are scared to run the slant. I love it. I get right down the heels of the linebackers, and I'm gone. You're not gonna catch me. Um, and so I dream about it now. So what I would say is, though, that pressure, more so focus on having fun. Really focus on having fun. Don't leave yourself saying what if. You know what I mean? Don't leave yourself like waking up and saying, "Man, I wish I would have or I could have." No, just do it. Just do it. Coaches are going to coach you regardless. People are always going to have their criticism. Even if you do everything right, like right, if I watch you play and I'm like, "Yo, you're not aggressive enough." Well, of course I'm going to say that. I come from a smash mouth football town. I'm not. Nobody's ever aggressive enough for me, right? And though I don't think that's the ideal way to play anymore, but nobody's ever aggressive enough. And if some of my colleagues watch you play that have played in the NFL, they're gonna say you're too tight, you're not looser, you got to be a little bit more swifter, you got to move a certain way. And that's because they used to playing in the spread, they used to having the field wide open. And so there's always going to be criticism. Take the criticism, learn from it, and move forward and have fun. That is the name of the game, is to have fun. When you stop having fun, that's when you start to run into a lot of problems.
Good stuff. So finally, just this topic overall, sports, performance anxiety, school athletes, high school sports. Is there any one last final thought to add to the importance of addressing this topic?
Yeah, I would say, man, in short, have fun, watch film. At high school level, I know that film watching, you don't understand the art of film watching, but watch film. Um, criticism is gonna come. Take it, practice on it, have fun, even in practice. You know, um, take the feedback from the coaches, but focus on having fun. And for the coaches, I would say, get to know your players, get to know your athletes. Life. Life is bigger than the game, and if you can coach them in life, you definitely can coach them football.
So, Marquise, man, I really appreciate you for coming on the show tonight to address this topic. Hey, I hope you will consider coming back in the future, being a guest on Thrive Talks. Just want you to know, and saying this publicly, that I have so much respect for you and the work that you do. Uh, and just glad that you accepted this invitation to come and speak to the audience of Thrive Talks. Hey, can you tell the audience how to get in contact with you? Where are you practicing? Where's your practice, and how to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So my office is in Bryant, Arkansas. That address is 207 Progress Way. Bryant, that's zip code 72022. My website is when Notice I started with Win. My website is Win Within Therapy Group .com, I believe. No, W2X therapy.com. That's my website. You can find me on Facebook, Win Within Therapy Group. You also have a YouTube channel, Win Within Therapy Group. I came up with the concept win within. More so, I believe if an individual is able to win the battle within, whether that's navigating trauma or some sort of anxiety, such as performance anxiety, then they can win any battle there is in life. But you have to win the battle within. And so those are some of the ways that you can connect with me on my website. If you are to looking to book an appointment, you can click, I believe it says sign up now, or let's get started. It says let's get started, fill your information in, and definitely get back with you within 24 hours. Also, telehealth. Brian is a long ways, kinda. So I do a lot of telehealth. I can't say any details, but I saw people. Let's just say all of Arkansas in places that you were like, what, really? And it's cool. Telehealth. I have the earphones, and I like to pretend I'm on a podcast, and so I have a lot of fun. Keep in mind, main thing is have fun, right? And so telehealth is definitely an option.
So with that being said, I take it you are accepting new clients. Do you start at a certain age? What's your age range? Or
So age range right now, 6. I started at age 6. I certified 0 to 5, but at that point, I more so want to see the parent. So 6. My oldest person I see at this point, I think they just turned 68 not too long ago. So pretty much that's the age range, but the primarily focus is more so teens. I love working with teens, specifically athletes, but all teens. That looks like 13 to 25, that range. They're trying to figure out life, what they want to do, that type of thing. One of the reasons I like working with athletes is, well, for one, I get to hear their stories and I get to feel like I'm one of the teammates again. But but
Right.
also really being able to support them with making that transition from athletic world, sports world to real world. And the transition is sweet and is really smooth. And if you perfect it, I mean, you will go very far. You will go very far for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So athletes, parents, coaches, trainers, listen, Marquis is unique in addressing this because, again, he's a former college athlete and he's also a licensed mental health therapist. So, hey, he gets it. He understands it. Uh, do you accept insurance, self pay? Do you have a sliding fee scale for
Yeah,
those that
yeah,
may be interested in knowing?
for sure. So at this point, I take all major insurances. I'm working on soon. I'll be taking TRICARE. I think I have Aetna approved and TRICARE approved, but it's not effective date yet. And I'll be taking Medicare pretty soon. But right now, I'm taking UMR, United Healthcare, UAC, or United Healthcare is UAC, Qual Choice, Blue Cross, and Better, Medicaid, and all the passes.
Okay, yeah, and then I also want to tell the audience because a lot of times, Marquise, people are just not aware. Most employers have a employee assistance program, an EAP program that will pay for mental health services, for counseling services. So all you have to do is go to your employer and say, "Hey, I need counseling." Not only will they pay it for you, but they will also pay it for your children. And
Absolutely.
so a lot of individuals are not aware of that. So if your employer has an EAP program, they will allot you so many sessions for counseling. Again, not just for you, but for your family members also. And that's a good good information to have. A lot of people are just not aware of that. All right. All right. So again, thank you, man, for joining us. We're getting ready to close out. Thank everyone for tuning in with us on tonight, and we hope that something was said to help you to find ways to encourage your child, your high school athlete that may be dealing with performance anxiety. Again, I feel that this is a topic that is needed, and we just don't talk about it enough. But again, we do have those athletes come in and they're dealing with these types of issues. So I just think we need to start raising the awareness, particularly in our public schools, for those athletes that may be dealing with this. Any final words, sir?
No, sir, man. I appreciate you for having me. Part of me still feels like an athlete. Right now, these days, I'm boxing, training. I don't know why, but it gives me a thrill, gets me going, gets me moving. So anytime I get to talk about the things that athletes are going through or facing, it's always a pleasure for me. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, man. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining in.